Lyra sat in the center of the white examination room, her silver eyes moving slowly from one glowing screen to another. She did not speak, she did not blink, she only watched. She looked like a quiet shadow in the middle of bright lights and cold machines. The human scientists thought the routine test would be simple. They believed the young alien girl was harmless, calm, and easy to study. No one expected what would happen next. Jensen wiped his forehead with a cloth. His shift was too long, and the lab was warm. A small drop of sweat fell from his jaw onto the metal floor. The sound was soft, almost nothing, but Lyra reacted like a gunshot had been fired. Her head turned sharply toward him, her eyes widening, every muscle in her body tensed like she sensed something powerful, something she did not understand. The scientists froze, unsure what was happening. They had never seen Lyra move so fast. Lyra's breathing changed. She inhaled deeply, almost painfully, like she was smelling something impossible. Her pale skin shimmered with faint blue lines, glowing softly under the room lights. The machines surrounding her beeped sharply, showing sudden spikes in her temperature and heart rate. Jensen stepped back, confusion and fear mixing in his eyes. He whispered to the others, asking if anyone had changed the room settings or given her a new stimulus, but everyone shook their heads. No one had done anything. Lyra stood slowly, her eyes locked on Jensen like she could see through his skin. It was not anger, not fear, but something deeper, something instinctive. She tilted her head slightly, breathing in again. A chill went down every human spine in the room. Jensen dropped the cloth he used to wipe his sweat, and the moment it hit the floor, Lyra flinched, like the sound echoed inside her mind. The scientists whispered rapidly. Some thought it was fear, others said it was attraction to data or a chemical reaction, but nobody knew for sure. The tension in the room grew heavier with each passing second. Lyra's fingers began to glow faintly, and her hair rose slightly, floating like it was underwater. Jensen tried speaking to her, his voice shaking, but Lyra did not answer. She only stared at the place where the drop of sweat had fallen, like it held a secret meant only for her. Species. On the main monitor, strange wave patterns appeared. The AI assistant tried analyzing them but failed, claiming the signals did not match any known alien reaction. The scientists exchanged anxious looks. Machines flickered, lights dimmed, and a humming vibration spread through the floor. Lyra's glowing lines brightened, her breath turning slow and deep, as if preparing for something dangerous. Jensen took one step toward her, and the reaction was instant. Lyra's skin flared with sudden light, and she jerked back, almost stumbling, like she was fighting something inside herself. The humans backed away in fear, wondering if she was transforming or losing control. They had seen alien reactions before, but this was different, more personal, more unpredictable. Lyra pressed her hand against the glass wall for balance, her fingers trembling. Her eyes were wider than ever, shining like small moons. An alarm beeped sharply. The monitors detected an energy spike building inside Lyra's body, something unstable, something growing with every breath she took. The scientists rushed to the control panel, trying to activate the safety shields, but the system lagged. Confused by the unfamiliar signals, they watched helplessly as Lyra gasped, clutching her chest like two forces were pulling her in opposite directions. Jensen was still inside the observation chamber, trapped with her. He tried staying calm, but fear crawled through him like ice. Lyra looked at him with a mix of fear and recognition, as if she sensed something inside him that even he did not know existed. She took one uncertain step toward him, her movements unsteady, unstable. Every screen around them flickered, reacting to her energy. The humans could only watch, trapped by the mystery unfolding before them. Lyra raised her hand slowly, pointing at Jensen. Her voice came out weak and trembling, a voice unused to human speech. She whispered one single word, "Why?" It echoed through the silent room, hitting every human with a wave of shock. She had never spoken before, and now her first word was a question no one understood. Jensen swallowed hard, unable to answer, unsure if she wanted help or warning. The machines continued to spike, showing chaotic readings. Lines jumped unevenly, numbers flashed red. Lyra's glowing marks flickered like broken electricity. She pressed her palm to the floor where the sweat had fallen. Her body shivered, then went still, completely still, too still. Everyone held their breath as she lifted her head slowly, meeting Jensen's eyes again. Her expression changed, her fear vanished, replaced by something calm and focused. Her eyes deepened in color, turning from silver to a stormy blue. The humming energy in the room intensified, vibrating through the glass and metal. Lyra stood straight now, as if she understood something enormous, something terrifying, about the human standing in front of her. What human sweat awakened inside her was still unknown, but one thing became clear: Lyra was not reacting by accident, she was responding to something ancient, something buried in her species' past, and the humans were not ready for what this meant. The hook had only begun, and the danger was just waking up. Lyra stood in the center of the chamber, her glowing lines fading in and out like blinking stars. The scientists watched her every move, unsure if she was calming down or preparing for something worse. The room was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes the heart beat louder. Dr. Jensen stayed frozen inside with her, afraid that any movement might trigger another reaction. Lyra took a slow step forward, her feet making no sound on the metal floor. Her silver hair floated with a soft energy, moving even though there was no air flow in the chamber. She inhaled again, a shaky breath, like she was trying to understand the strange scent that had changed her so suddenly. Her eyes locked on Dr. Jensen, but now there was something new inside them, not fear, not confusion, but recognition, as if she had finally connected a missing puzzle piece. Dr. Jensen raised his hands slowly, his voice trembling as he tried speaking to her. He told her she was safe, that no one wanted to hurt her, but Lyra tilted her head in a strange way, as if she was listening to something he could not hear. Then, without warning, her glowing lines pulsed sharply, sending small waves across the floor. The lights flickered, and the scientists outside stepped back in fear. Lyra reached her hand toward Dr. Jensen, not to touch him, but as if she was measuring the air around him. Her fingers glowed brighter the closer she got. The machines behind her showed rising energy levels again, but unlike before, they were more controlled, more focused. She wasn't losing control this time, she was learning control. The scientists whispered nervously, realizing she was adapting at a speed no one expected. Suddenly, Lyra stopped moving, her breath catching for a moment. Her eyes darted around the chamber like she sensed danger, not from the humans, but from herself. Her fingers trembled, and she pressed them against her chest. Her body gave off a soft, low vibration, like a distant thunder rumbling inside her. Then it happened, a shockwave burst out from her, not large, but strong enough to make Dr. Jensen stumble backward. The glass around them shook, and every machine in the lab jumped with error messages. Lyra gasped and fell to her knees, her glowing lines flickering weakly. It looked as if the energy inside her was fighting to escape, and she was trying desperately to hold it back. The scientists panicked, shouting orders, trying to regain control of the failing systems. The chamber lights turned red, signaling an internal anomaly. Dr. Jensen ran to Lyra, kneeling beside her even though everyone outside screamed for him to stay away. He placed his hands near her shoulders, afraid to touch her, but wanting to help. Lyra opened her eyes slowly, and for the first time, they looked terrified. She whispered something in her own language, a soft trembling sound that echoed like a broken melody. The translation system failed to process it, creating only static on the speakers. Dr. Jensen tried calming her, telling her she was safe, but Lyra shook her head. She knew something he didn't, something bigger than the moment. Her body jerked with another pulse, but this one was smaller, weaker. She was trying to suppress it, fighting against whatever was building inside her. The scientists realized her reaction was not random, not emotional, but biological. Human sweat contained a chemical that triggered her ancient instincts, instincts buried deep inside her species, instincts even she didn't understand. Lyra lifted her hand again, pointing at the spot where the sweat had fallen earlier. Her eyes darkened, and her breathing turned uneven. She whispered a single word in a trembling voice: danger. The humans felt their stomachs drop. If Lyra was afraid, then something serious was happening inside her. As Dr. Jensen tried to guide her to sit properly, the floor beneath them began to vibrate again. This vibration wasn't from Lyra, it came from the station itself. The scientists checked the readings and realized the energy spikes inside Lyra were affecting the entire station's power grid. Her body was creating a field that interfered with every system around her. The lights dimmed, turning the room into a half-shadowed sphere with only the glowing lines on Lyra's skin illuminating the chamber. Her pulse quickened again, and each beat sent a small ripple across the floor. The walls hummed like something inside them was waking up. Lyra tried standing, but her legs shook, her energy unstable. Dr. Jensen reached out and steadied her. His touch did not harm her this time. Instead, her energy calmed slightly, as if his presence balanced her. The scientists gasped, realizing Lyra's reaction wasn't only triggered by human sweat, but controlled by human contact. Something in humans connected with something deep inside her species, something powerful and forgotten. Before anyone could understand it, Lyra suddenly grabbed Dr. Jensen's sleeve, pulling him closer with surprising strength. Her eyes widened in panic as she whispered a trembling warning, "It's not just me." Her voice cracked, followed by a burst of static across the speakers. The scientists froze, trying to understand what she meant. The chamber shook again, harder this time. A loud alarm echoed through the station. The humans stared at the monitors in disbelief. Something outside the station was responding to Lyra's energy signal, something big, something unknown. Her reaction had reached farther than they ever imagined. Lyra struggled to stand straight, breathing fast, her glowing marks flashing rapidly. She pointed toward the window, fear twisting her expression. Dr. Jensen turned slowly, and his heart dropped as he saw a massive shadow in space, drifting closer and blocking the distant stars. The scientists stared in silent terror, realizing Lyra's reaction had awakened something that should never have been disturbed. And this was only the beginning. The real danger had just arrived. The shadow outside the station grew larger, swallowing the stars behind it. The scientists stared at the wide window, unable to understand what shape it had. It wasn't a ship they recognized, and it wasn't a natural object either. It moved with purpose, slow but heavy, like something alive. Lyra's breathing grew faster as she watched it, her body shaking with fear she couldn't hide. Inside the chamber, Dr. Jensen tried to keep calm, but even he felt a cold grip of terror in his chest. Lyra pulled away from him, clutching her head as if something inside her mind screamed warnings. Her glowing marks flickered uncontrollably, turning bright and then fading again, like a storm trapped under her skin. She whispered something in her alien language, broken and scared, but no translation came, only static. The scientists outside scrambled to activate the defense shields, but the system kept glitching. Every time they pressed a button, the lights flickered and the station shook again. Lyra's earlier energy wave had damaged more than they realized. The entire power grid was unstable. The commander shouted orders, trying to keep control, but panic had already begun spreading through his voice. Lyra suddenly dropped to her knees, her hands pressed against the floor. The glow on her skin spread across the metal plates like thin threads of light, reaching out in every direction. The effect was immediate. Every machine in the lab began to beep wildly, detecting unknown signals. The scientists stepped back from the glass, fear rising in their eyes as they realized Lyra wasn't just reacting anymore, she was connecting to something. Dr. Jensen called out to her, but Lyra didn't look up. She whispered a single human word, her voice shaking, "Coming." The chamber lights dimmed to red, and the room felt colder, as if the station itself sensed danger. Lyra's glowing veins pulsed again, brighter this time, matching the slow approach of the massive shadow outside. Suddenly, the floor vibrated beneath them, a heavy tremor that rattled the entire station. Tools fell, screens cracked, and warning alarms echoed through every hallway. Lyra gasped sharply, her body jerking like she felt the impact inside her bones. Dr. Jensen held her shoulders, afraid she might collapse completely, but Lyra pushed his hands away, pointing weakly toward the window again. The shadow moved closer, revealing faint lines of light running across its surface. It wasn't one creature or one ship, it was thousands of small shapes moving together, forming a living wall of dark matter. The scientists stared in disbelief, whispering theories, but none made sense. Lyra tried to stand, but her legs shook from exhaustion. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever, filled with panic and recognition, as if she knew exactly what those shapes were. The commander shouted for lockdown, sealing doors and shutting down access corridors, but before the shields could activate, the station shuddered again, harder this time, like something outside had pushed against it. Lyra flinched, clutching her chest, her breathing shallow and fast. She whispered, "They heard me." Her voice cracked as she said it, and a cold silence filled the chamber. Dr. Jensen tried to ask what they meant, but Lyra wouldn't look at him. Her eyes remained fixed on the shadow, tears forming from fear and pain. The scientists scanned the approaching mass, and the readings made no sense. The shapes outside emitted the same strange signal that Lyra did, the same pulse, the same rhythm. They were connected to her in a way the humans could not understand. Another tremor hit the station, and this one sent sparks flying from loose wires. Lyra screamed, falling to the floor as her energy surged out again. This burst was bigger, cracking part of the chamber wall and sending waves across the room. Dr. Jensen shielded her, pulling her close to protect her from falling debris. The scientists watched helplessly, unable to enter or even help because the chamber doors were sealed. Lyra grabbed Dr. Jensen's sleeve again, her voice breaking as she whispered, "They think I called them." Her eyes filled with fear and guilt, as if she had awakened something ancient and dangerous by accident. The commander yelled through the speaker for everyone to brace for impact, warning that the station would not withstand another hit. Outside, the shadow of moving creatures spread across the station's hull, crawling with alien shapes that flickered like ghosts in the dark. They pressed their bodies against the metal, testing it, listening to the signals coming from Lyra. The scientists watched as the hull reading spiked into unknown territory, showing vibrations like communication, not attack. The creatures were answering her signal, responding to her instinctive pulse. The chamber lights flickered until they went dark completely, leaving only Lyra's glowing marks to light the room. Dr. Jensen held her steady as she shivered violently. Her body was now fully synced with the energy outside. Every pulse from the creatures echoed through her, shaking her bones. She whispered again, her voice barely audible, "I didn't mean to call them." But it was too late. The creatures outside were not leaving. They had found her. And they wanted her back. Or worse, they wanted what she had awakened inside herself. The humans had no idea what was coming next. But Lyra knew. And her fear alone was enough to terrify everyone watching. The chamber stayed dark except for the faint blue glow coming from Lyra's skin. The air inside felt colder, thicker, as if the entire station held its breath. Dr. Jensen kept one hand on Lyra's shoulder, afraid she might collapse again. She trembled softly, her eyes locked on the shadowy shapes crawling over the hull outside. Their movements were slow, almost careful, like they were searching for something. The scientists tried rerouting power to the lights, but nothing worked. Every time they activated a system, Lyra's glowing marks pulsed and the machines flickered again. They finally realized the truth. She wasn't just reacting to the energy outside, she was absorbing it, exchanging signals with it. Her body acted like an antenna, pulling in every pulse that came from the creatures outside. Lyra placed her hand on the floor, and a thin ripple of light spread out from her skin into the metal again. This time the machines didn't malfunction. Instead, the main screen slowly lit up with strange symbols, swirling and forming patterns no human had coded. The language was alien, complex, and alive. The scientists stared as the symbols rearranged themselves into a shape that almost looked like a warning. Dr. Jensen leaned closer, trying to understand. Lyra whispered softly, "Old words." Her voice was weak but steady enough to show she understood something the humans didn't. She reached out and touched the glowing pattern on the screen. The moment her fingers connected, the entire chamber hummed with a deep, low vibration. The symbols changed again, forming a map of stars humans had never charted. Lyra's breathing slowed as she stared at the map. The glowing marks on her skin turned a darker blue, almost violet. She whispered, "My people tried to erase this." Her voice shook as she spoke. "They hid it from us." Dr. Jensen asked her what it meant, but Lyra shook her head, tears forming in her glowing eyes. "Because it was dangerous," she whispered, "because we were not supposed to feel this call." The creatures outside pressed closer to the hull, their bodies giving off the same pulsing light as Lyra's skin. A low echoing sound filled the station, like thousands of distant voices humming in unison. The commander shouted over the speakers, asking for answers, demanding to know what they were dealing with. But Lyra was the only one who knew, and she wasn't ready to speak. Dr. Jensen gently lifted her chin, trying to calm her. "Lyra, what are they?" he asked softly. Her body shuddered at the question. She looked at him with fear and sorrow mixed together. "They are part of us," she whispered, "the part we lost." The scientists were stunned, trying to understand. Lyra wiped her tears with shaking hands. "My species locked away a piece of our own evolution," she said slowly. "We feared it, so we forgot it." The map on the screen zoomed in on a single point, a star system glowing brighter than the rest. Lyra touched it weakly. "This is where we were born," she whispered. "All of us." The commander asked if the creatures outside were from the same system. Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered, "but they did not forget what we lost." Her glowing veins pulsed again. the colors shifting like storm clouds in motion. The creatures outside suddenly stopped moving, every single one freezing in place. The humming sound grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Lyra pressed her hands to her ears, overwhelmed by the noise. Dr. Jensen held her shoulders, trying to shield her. The humming grew deeper, sharper, as if the creatures were sending her a message she couldn't block anymore. Lyra whispered through trembling lips, "They think I called them home." The words hit the scientists like a shockwave. Her accidental reaction to human sweat had triggered an ancient biological signal, a beacon her species hadn't used for centuries, maybe longer. The creatures outside weren't attacking, they were answering. They believed Lyra was one of their own, calling for them. The chamber screens flickered and shifted into a new pattern. This one was clearer, stronger. It showed a symbol shaped like an eye surrounded by spirals of light. Lyra stared at it with dread. "This is the mark of the first line," she whispered. Dr. Jensen asked her what that meant. Her voice cracked as she answered. "They were the original ones," she said, "the beginning of us, the strongest, the purest." She lowered her head, fear filling her voice, "the ones we abandoned." A sudden impact slammed against the station, throwing everyone off balance. Tools rattled, machines sparked, and the lights flickered again. Lyra screamed as the energy from the creatures surged straight into her. Her body arched in pain, glowing violently as if burning from the inside. Dr. Jensen held her tightly, shouting for help, but no one could enter the sealed chamber. The scientists scanned the hull and realized the creatures were forming a pattern, an ancient symbol matching the one on the screen. They weren't breaking in, they were marking the station, claiming it, claiming her. Lyra's pulse synchronized with theirs, her glowing marks flashing in the same rhythm. She whispered desperately, "Please stop, please," but the connection only grew stronger. Her eyes turned bright violet, glowing like cosmic fire. She looked at Dr. Jensen with a mixture of fear and apology. "I can't stop it," she whispered. "They want what I awakened." Her voice trembled with despair, "and they won't leave without it." Before anyone could respond, the entire station shook again, harder than ever. A massive shape approached behind the swarm, darker, older, powerful. Lyra gasped in terror, whispering a final trembling word. "Leader." And the shadow moved closer. Slow, massive, unstoppable. As if it had finally found the one it had been searching for. The massive shape behind the swarm moved slowly, like a sleeping mountain waking up after centuries. Its presence made the entire station tremble. Every vibration felt heavier, deeper, as if the creature's heartbeat echoed through the metal walls. The scientists stared at the screens, speechless. Their minds tried to understand the size of the thing outside, but their eyes refused to accept it. Lyra pressed her hands against the glass, her glowing skin flickering wildly. The light on her body pulsed faster, syncing with the giant shadow outside. Her breath shook in her chest, each inhale trembling with fear. Dr. Jensen held her arm, trying to stop her from collapsing, but Lyra barely felt his touch now. She was connected to something far bigger than the station, far older than her memories. The smaller creatures outside suddenly spread apart, creating a clear path for the enormous shape behind them. The station's alarms screamed as the shadow came closer. Its outline became clearer, revealing long flowing tendrils of dark energy that moved like liquid night. The scientists whispered in terror, some stepping back from the glass, others frozen in place, unable to believe what they were seeing. Lyra whispered a single word, her voice breaking, "Ancestor." Dr. Jensen felt a chill crawl up his spine. He asked her what it wanted, but Lyra's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head slowly. "It wants what I woke," she said softly. "It wants the signal." The glow on her skin pulsed strongly again, and the chamber filled with a faint humming sound, the same deep hum that came from the creatures outside. The giant shadow finally reached the hull of the station, its tendrils wrapped around the metal gently, almost like fingers testing the surface. The lights flickered violently, screens glitched, and every power line surged with unstable energy. Lyra gasped, dropping to her knees as the connection grew stronger. Dr. Jensen grabbed her shoulders, trying to keep her steady, but the energy flowing through her was too strong, too old, too powerful. The swarm outside began circling the station, moving faster and faster, creating a spiraling ring of dark light. The symbol on the chamber screen glowed brighter, the eye-like shape pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's heartbeat. Dr. Jensen shouted for help, begging the team to override the lockdown and get inside, but the commander yelled back that the system wasn't responding. Lyra's signal had locked everything down. Lyra tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She pressed her hands against her chest, her glowing marks burning brighter. "It thinks I called it," she whispered weakly. "It thinks I'm ready." Her voice cracked with fear. "But I'm not, Dr. Jensen tried to calm her, telling her she was not alone, but Lyra shut her eyes tightly, shaking her head. "It doesn't understand humans," she said, "it only understands the old blood." The giant shadow outside pulled itself closer, its massive form drifting around the station like a dark moon. A low rumble echoed through space, a sound so deep it vibrated through every person on the station. The scientists held on to consoles and walls as the shaking grew stronger. Sparks flew from broken wires, and screens shattered under the pressure of the energy wave. Lyra suddenly screamed, her voice echoing through the chamber. Her body arched forward as a bright burst of light shot out from her chest, hitting the metal floor and spreading like a crack across the room. Dr. Jensen tried to pull her back, but the energy burned through the ground like liquid fire. Lyra's glowing veins brightened to blinding white, her body trembling uncontrollably. The giant creature outside reacted instantly, its tendrils tightened around the hull, sending shockwaves through the station. The swarm around it answered with flashes of light, their pulses synced with Lyra, forming a pattern no human could read, but every alien creature outside understood it perfectly. Lyra lifted her shaking hand and pointed toward the window. Her voice came out barely audible. "It's choosing." Dr. Jensen asked what it meant. Lyra swallowed hard, tears falling from her glowing eyes. "It's choosing the next carrier," she whispered, her voice broke, "and it thinks it's me." Before Dr. Jensen could respond, the entire station went silent. Every alarm stopped, every machine died, every light turned off. The only glow came from Lyra's trembling body and the ancient creature outside. A single deep pulse echoed through space. A signal, powerful and ancient. A call that only Lyra could hear. She turned slowly toward Dr. Jensen, her eyes glowing with a new, frightening light. "I can't stop what's coming," she whispered. "But you can't let it take me." And before he could ask how, the hull of the station cracked. A blinding light burst through the window. And the massive creature began to open itself like a living gate, reaching toward Lyra with unstoppable force. The screen went black, leaving only one question in the minds of every human watching. What happens next? When the Ancient Ones finally find her?